Hi, everybody. Sorry about technical difficulties. We'll try and get started. This is a little bit smaller resolution than I'm used to, so please bear with me. Gotta probably, okay. Yeah. All right, if you're in the wrong room, now's the time. You can walk out, it's a shame.
Well, 10 minutes ago was right, but too late.
That's right, that's right. So my name is Leighton Whiting. I work for Perfectly Posh. They're a MLM company, although they don't like that term. They are currently running a site that's on commerce. So we are actually probably one of the biggest commerce sites out there, I would think. I think we do between $10 and $20 million every month on that site. So it's trying to squeeze a lot of volume through commerce. And I don't know of anyone that has more than that right now. So we've really had a lot of fun trying to explore what the limits are with commerce and trying to optimize things as we can and trying to optimize our stack. It's been really awesome. We're going to talk about writing tests though. So how many people here have experience with writing tests in Drupal 7 or 8 or anything else for that matter? Okay, is it mostly with 8 or is it with 7 mostly or 8? Oh, nice. You guys are probably more advanced than I am. Most of mine are 7. I learned how to write tests on Drupal 6 actually, and then I think it had simple tests back then, right? And then they just continued that in 7, and the stuff involved with that, there's 2 styles of tests basically. There's unit tests and there's web tests. I'm actually skipping a little bit ahead, but anyways, let's stick to the slides actually. So why do we even write tests, you know? Any ideas besides what's on the slide? Don't cheat. But from what I've experienced, when you're trying to fix a bug or trying to create a new feature or anything, you don't have any idea if this small change over here is going to impact something somewhere else in your system. And that's the entire ideology with writing tests. If all of the modules have their own tests and can ensure that everything is intact with itself, then if anything in the system is changed and all those tests are ran, it will stick up a flag and say, hey, that change screwed up whatever module over here. And you're oh, why did that happen? And then you have to go figure out why, and that's the fun part. But from what I've seen, trying to fix bugs usually creates even more bugs if you aren't careful. So if you have a lot of really good tests in place, it's really great because you have the ability to create a fix or create a feature and have the security and the peace of mind that this fix isn't screwing up any of your other tests that you've already written. So part of the idea there is to create tests for everything that you do. If you're creating a new feature, create a test for it first. Create a test that starts out where it isn't even working, right? Because it's you haven't even created your feature yet. So you create the test first and have that test be failing at the start even, which is awesome. And then create the feature. And as you create the feature, you run that test. And then after that test starts to pass, that's when you know that you're done with your feature, right? So that's the whole ideology with creating tests with features. If there's a bug, it's even easier because there's already something that you know is broken. So you create the test first that should pass, but since it's a bug, it'll fail. Then you have to try to fix the bug. And then after it's fixed, it'll have that test pass. All of the other tests pass. Everything's great. I'm on our team over in Perfectly Posh. I think we've got 10 or 12 people or something on our team, and some of them are remote. And it's just really hard to stay on top of what everyone is doing. And so if you have really good tests in place, you can ensure that so-and-so's code isn't screwing up any of your code because all of your code has tests. Let's see. I think I covered all this. Oh, and also if anyone has any questions or comments or snide remarks, just speak up. It's fine with me. So let's see. I think we covered that one. Drupal 7 had simple tests. And also 6 too, and it's awesome, but it's kind of a thing that we do in Drupal that isn't really used anywhere else. I haven't really heard of anyone else that uses simple test besides Drupal, although it is it's like supposed to be its own thing, right? But I don't know if anyone else actually uses it. Does anyone know?
Anybody else use simple test?
Yeah, simple test.
For Drupal, but
Right,
no,
right,
I don't
yeah.
think it really. Once PHPUnit was developed, I was like, why would anybody use anything else?
Right, right.
And anybody coming from something outside of PHP would have said, well, unit testing, that's what I want to use anyway. Why would I use?
Exactly, exactly.
And you can't even, I mean, simple test doesn't support log objects, it doesn't support most things.
Yeah, so everything out there supports PHPUnit. Hardly anything supports simple test. I created a circleci runner for simple test for our perfectly posh site. And it was a pain in the ass. It was so hard because there isn't any examples out there that are working for simple tests because there just isn't anyone using it. But in the end, I succeeded, and we have a suite of, I think it's like close to 5,000 tests that like are running. So anytime we have like a commit, it will run all those tests. And it takes like 25 minutes to run them all, honestly, which is a long time. But like it doesn't like you have to sit there and wait for it to run. You can like hit the button and then go start on something else, and it'll say, "Oh, this thing had an issue with this test," and then you have to go fix it.
If you get through 5,000 tests in 25 minutes, that's actually pretty good. I would consider that pretty fast, actually.
Yeah, and that's fair. And also, our site, I actually created like a hacked class because, like, as like you know, with simple tests, there's unit tests and there's browser tests. I think they're called like web tests. I created a third one, which is called posh site testing or something like that. Because like with the other two, what they do is they basically reinstall an instance of Drupal every time for every test, and it takes forever. And like you have to set up everything in like your setup function. You have to install all the modules you need for that test. You have to add all of the configuration that you need, which is it's like really great for if you're trying to maintain a module or something. But if you're trying to maintain a site with existing configuration and like all these modules that are installed, and it's a very complex site like ours was, then it's pretty much impossible to set all that up in the step there like at the start. So instead, like what I did was I exported a very small like a database dump with just all of our config and like all that stuff, and then I basically stuck that into our like repository, and then it gets installed, and then all of our tests are run on the same existing site, so it's not reinstalling our like instance every time. So it has pros and cons. The cons are that all of your tests can affect the other tests, so you have to be very careful about teardown. But the pros are like all of your tests can run on like your existing site with all of your existing config, and like you can tell if anything that you do will screw up your site in prod. Basically, it's very, very close. So there's a lot of pros there too. But anyways, that's something else entirely. We don't want to spend too much time on 7. PHP 8, or Drupal 8 has PHPUnit, which is really great. It's supported all over the place. It's also fast, and that's like one of the major advantages there. If you create like unit tests with your code, those will run ridiculously fast. It doesn't have to start it's essentially just like running them like on top of PHP. Like it's not installing Drupal or anything for those. But like a lot of people say, like, well, PHPUnit isn't that just unit tests? Like, how about browser tests or anything else? And it actually does support all those things. A lot of people aren't like really aware, but you can create browser tests, kernel tests, JavaScript tests, all those in the PHPUnit, which is really great. When I was first learning about PHPUnit, I was thinking to myself, how is this useful? Like having like a little like method that adds like 6 + 4, and then like you want to assert it's equal to 10. I mean, yes, it's like really fast, but is it actually useful? And so that's like one of those things. These are all tools, and you have to choose which of those tools are the best one for your actual use case, I guess. So unit tests, these ones are actually really fun, and they're actually really powerful if you create your code with them in mind, basically. So In order to make really good use of these unit tests, you have to create your code with like unit tests in mind. Like you would create a class that would only do specific things that then like you can like unit test those individual methods in that class. So it's kind of like a mentality shift a little bit. But if you have all your code set up this way, you can have like really fun things like mocking, injection, and like all kinds of stuff. I'm not really planning to get into that very deeply in this one because that's a whole other topic. But there's a lot of really awesome things out there you can read, and there's some awesome examples out there too. At the end of this, I have some example code and some like links and stuff. But one of the advantages of these is that they run super fast. You can run upwards of like 4,000 or 5,000 of these in like under a minute. They're just super fast. And also like you can like run these on your local without any additional setup because it's just running on top of PHP. It doesn't have to bootstrap anything. It doesn't need like Apache or a like MySQL or anything like that. So any questions about unit tests? Not planning on spending a ton of time on them, but there's a lot there. And if you're interested in it, you should look into it because they're actually like really awesome. You guys are all staring at me like deer in the headlights, but hopefully I'm not going too fast. Kernel tests. These are kind of a happy medium. And I think it was created by Drupal. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to say if you have a test that like requires access to the database or requires access to like other modules that are installed with a schema, or it's pretty much just stuff in the database. It's like unit tests aren't able to access anything over the database, but kernel tests can. So it's kind of it's like a very like low bootstrap level, I guess, but it's not as high as like the web layer basically. So if you have a test that's, for instance, let's say like you have a module that inserts transaction points into a table, and then like you have like some methods that will add them up, and like you want to spend the points and then like ensure that it's right balance after you spend them. This would be a perfect test for that because you're not actually accessing anything over the web, yet like you still need like to have schema support. In the past for Drupal 7, you would just have to create like a web test with this, even if you aren't like using any web stuff, and it's a lot slower. So this is trying to like squeeze into that gap, I guess, there where there's in like historical ones, there isn't really any like middle ground basically. Web tests. This is what a lot of people are like really used to with these tests. Most of the tests that were written for 7, I would say, are probably in this category, simply because a lot of the code that's with 7 isn't really created with like unit tests in mind. Unit tests are geared towards like object-oriented stuff more, and there's not a lot of that in Drupal 7, but 8 is almost all object-oriented code. So, but I mean, like there is times when you need to have a test to ensure that your form will actually work. If you hit a button on your form, then like you want to ensure that after you hit that button, it actually has like the correct stuff showing or something like that. So there is a lot of like really like useful stuff with this one out there. That's basically it for PHPUnit. JavaScript ones, if you have some tests that have to have like Ajax or something like that, it would be useful. That gets really messy. I wouldn't start with that if I were you guys, but it is possible, and it's like really great that they have that support there.
You can start with a web test. It's really easy to convert a web test into the functional JavaScript test. So if you don't really want to get into figuring out how you get the browser, you can actually get the functional test of these working. And now you know you've got a test that's running, and like,
yep.
Okay, now I'm going to put on
Ajax.
My big developer pants, and I'm going to actually get the testing stuff. Like if you need to know that a mobile displays, for instance, on the page, you can't do that with the regular functional test. But the functional JavaScript test does it. But start getting just a regular functional test to work, because everything, the JavaScript test base just extends the same thing that the functional does, so you don't lose anything that you had in your functional test. You just kind of are able to layer on top of that. And Drupal 8 was the Phantom.js headless browser.
I know the main thing I've been having problems with in Drupal 8 PHPUnit tests, but testing in general, is that a lot of the documentation for Drupal 8 tests are still in that process of being working. So there's a lot of things that are poorly documented.
Yeah, that's fair. Although I was impressed with, I think they recently updated it. And they have some pretty, wow, this is not even, sorry, it's like half off the screen. Okay. So they've got like an entire area now over in their documentation that just explains how to test basically on 8. And it's like head and shoulders a lot better than what they had for 7 now. There's some really interesting stuff in here. It explains how to write a test, explains what's the difference between all the tests, explains how to run the tests, and that's also very important. That's a part that I'm going to get into, I think, next, actually. But if you're interested, I mean, it's all there on .org, and they have a ton of stuff in there. Let's see, like running them with PHPUnit with PHP Storm, which I'll also like illustrate here. Mocking, which is very useful, but I'm not really planning to touch on that much because we don't have much time. But there's a lot there if you're interested. So back to, oh, there it was. Back to here. Which test should you use? This is like one of those things that depends on who you are. If you're trying to maintain a module, I would probably write a lot of unit tests for that. I would create a lot of unit tests and probably some web tests. If I had like Ajax stuff, I would create JavaScript tests, right? But if you're trying to maintain a site, like an entire site, and you're trying to ensure that all of your tests are like running on your site, it gets a little bit more tricky because you'll have to run basically all of the modules that you have installed. You would have to run those tests. Go ahead.
One of the things though is that if you've got a strong unit test bed, when you're doing your integration testing, you're just trying to test the interface between these things that are supposedly thoroughly unit tested.
Right.
They do what they're supposed to do. So you don't have to get as concerned about every combination and permutation and all the various error cases, this good data and this bad data, because a lot of that stuff is supposed to be addressed in
Exactly.
the unit test. So it's not unit tests or integration tests, you do both of them. And if you've got a good test out for your unit test, even as the integration tester, you have a way easier time right here.
Exactly.
So you don't have to, you could just say, I know that's been tested, I know it does all of these things, so I just need to test a sample of these things, the way these things integrate. It's way easier.
Yes, that's exactly right. So like if like you were like a site maintainer, right, all of your modules should have their own unit tests and all of them should be like 100% passing. And then for like your own site, you'd probably create a module or 2 or 3 for your own site stuff. And then you'd have some tests in there that would be like integration testing, where you're basically trying to test some of your main like workflows. Like let's say you have a flow to have one of your customers join as like a consultant, and you created like a form for that, right? You would have them step through that form, and it would also like hit on things like creating an account and like logging in and all those things, which are also unit tested, but this is just like an end-to-end thing for that case. So in the end, you'll end up using them all, right? If you're trying to maintain a module, you'd probably only be concerned with your own module stuff. But if it's an entire site you're trying to maintain, you'd be creating tests for specific workflows on your site. And that's not like the Bible, that's just like my experience there. But they're all useful and they all have their own specific things that they would shine on. So after you've created tests, next up is how do you run these tests? In PHP, or not PHP, in Drupal 7, you would install the module for that, and you still can do that in 8. I spun up a site that I was going to use for this, and I just went into the modules, hit the extend, and I installed the testing module. And after you do that, you can go to configuration, go to testing, and you'll have a list of all of your tests on your site here in a minute. And this is pretty much the exact same as it was on Drupal 7. So you scroll down, you would choose like one of these tests, and a lot of times it seems like there's 2 things in here, like one of them is lowercase, one of them is uppercase. I don't know why they did that with Drupal 8, but I think what it is like there's the like unit tests, and then there's the old style simple tests also.
The core is actually still using the mixture of simple tests, PHPUnit, although Simple test is supposed to be deprecated, not used anymore.
Yeah,
There's
so
one
if
thing
you're
that
creating new
simple tests
tests,
can
you wouldn't.
do, the PHPUnit can't.
Exactly.
Before there used to be some things that you wrote in simple test, but that's not true anymore.
Yes. So like, for example, there's one here using PHPUnit, and there's two that are using simple test, I think is how it works. But I could just like run all of them here, scroll down, hit run. Hopefully they pass, and it will like run those tests, and if there's errors, it'll explain like what the errors are. This is a new install, so hopefully everything's passing. I didn't really change much. Looks like they all passed right there. So that's all like really well and great if you're planning to run these manually online, and that is pretty useful every now and then. But there's like other options too. You can also open up a terminal and run things from the terminal. That's not it. Where is my other terminal? Okay. So for example, if you are planning to run these tests with PHPUnit, and there's actually a few options now for the terminal. Like you can run them with PHPUnit, or you can use the old style run-tests. And actually, I think that they both use the same thing on the back end. It's just like a different way of looking at it. So if you were to use PHPUnit, you'd do something like ender PHPUnit. Wait, I'll just go. Yeah, that's right. And then like you can do like lists all the groups. You can see what there is like to run, and it will show you all the stuff that's available. You can even just do lists. It'll show all the tests, and then like you can run specific tests if you would like. Here's all the groups. So then I could do something like run group system, for example, and it will then like execute all those tests that are in the system group in a minute, hopefully.
Do you have your system set up so that it's, because you can run into these weird things that if you aren't running it as the right user, that some of this stuff doesn't. I had huge headaches when I was first learning how to do this. Like,
yeah,
because I actually do mine, so I do the sudo, so I'm going to do it as a user, the www data, because I didn't want to go through these things. They said like, oh well, if you don't have to do that, then just change your Apache configuration so that it runs that. I'm like, no,
yeah,
I'm not
so
doing that. I'd rather have the sudo and run it as a particular user when I do it than pull it on without. And I'm noticing you're not doing that. So
yeah, so they
change your
do.
Apache configuration.
It's easiest just to chmod / to 777, right? I mean,
Yeah, like there's a lot of things involved. It depends on your local.
Well, don't forget to do it recursively.
Right. Because if you're gonna open up your box, and turn off the firewall because it gets in the way.
I have heard like there's like a lot of people.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying even with my local dev, I didn't want to screw around with doing that from my Apache configuration. I'd rather just use the sudo command and run it as the www data user.
Right.
But that's what I see you're not doing that, so that's what I'm asking. Like, what have you?
It depends on your local.
Done on your local machine? You specifically in this situation, what have you done that you're not using, running it as a particular user?
So I'm actually using Laravel Valet. Have you guys heard of that? Anyone?
I don't know which one.
Valet. I highly recommend it for like local if you aren't concerned with isolating all of your projects. If you just want something that will run fast and it's easy to spin up things, which is it was like my goal here, then it's really easy to use because all of your installs will use the same PHP and like the same MySQL, and they aren't in their own individual containers. It's really easy to set up, but there's pros and cons to that, right? I mean, I also use like Docker for like all my stuff, like with Posh and stuff. So it really, yeah, if like your local is geared for it, then like you can do all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So
yeah, I have mine inside of that too.
if I come up with the permission, it's not like they're going to be able to come up with my computer. I do that.
Yep. So there's like trade-offs for it. So this is taking a while. Some of this stuff.
So you guys are kind of doing it with your virtual machines. Whereas, I mean, I think I just straight up run the server on my computer.
You can
I've just gotten
also
the whole Docker integration and virtual machine stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, the biggest thing the main reason I went over to Bakery is so that, say, this is exactly what I know is being installed and what I'm using, rather than just whatever happens on my computer.
Right. Yeah, and that's the advantage of that. So in the end, every tool has its own use, right? But you can also use the old style here. This is just an example, and it'll like run it with the old runner. And it's the same thing under the covers that's happening. It's just how it explains what's happening that is actually changed. I'm gonna let that run. You can also set up your PHP storm to like execute these tests. So I can do run, and I've set this up so that it'll run the tests in the like user group here, for example. So I'll just go up here, hit the run button, and it'll start those tests too. I think there's a few that are failing because I have something wrong with my config, but I think almost all of them will pass. So there's a lot of different ways you can run these on your local. You have options. There it goes. So I suggest like always trying to run these like if like you're altering anything, you should always try to execute all of your tests on like your local first, and then after all of them are passing on your local, you would then submit like a PR. Which leads me to the next point, which is kind of the meat of this, and we've got like 8 minutes left. But the next one is tests are only as useful as how often they're run, right? If you have all these tests but you aren't ever running them, they aren't really doing you any good. So that's where the stuff like Circle comes into play. Continuous integration is the idea that every time you make a change, you enforce that you run all of your test suites every single time. And there's stuff out there that will automatically start using Jenkins on your local. How many people have used Jenkins? Anyone? One? Okay, there's a few. I actually haven't. But there's other things online too in the cloud you can use, like Travis and circleci. I have used both. Well, okay, yeah. Okay, fair enough. So all of these things, though, are in the cloud, and they integrate with GitLab or GitHub, and it will basically automatically run every time you make a change and commit. It will then like start like a new build, and it will run those, which is really great because you don't have to do anything, right? You just have the commit. It'll automatically run all your tests. If anything fails, it'll let you know. You don't have to check up on it. And that is the really strong point of having all these tests. If you have these tests but you aren't ever running them, they'll just get old, they'll get out of date, and they'll screw up. But if you're always constantly running them every time you make any change, then you will know immediately if there's a thing that you changed that's screwing it up. If you have like 20 or 30 commits in a branch, and like at that point you're like, okay, I'm gonna run these tests, and like you don't know like which of those individual ones screwed up the tests. If it's always running for each one, then you know, okay, that small thing I just changed screwed up this other test. It's really easy to figure out.
So just as a quick anecdotal story, I'm at BYU and anyway, testing. So there was a guy that was really big about unit testing, and there wasn't any unit testing project he was working on. He took an extra, so the project was scheduled for 6 months. He ended up taking 9 because he put in unit tests and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people were really mad that he'd gone over 3 months, and what about the budget, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, it was what it was.
Right.
The next year, there was another 6-month project scheduled to go, right? It took him just over 4 weeks.
Right, because he already had them all in place.
Because he already had the unit tests in place. Yep. So, right, when he comes back in a month and says, okay, I'm done, what's next?
Yep.
Like, you can't be done. We've never done this less than 6 months. You can't, right? We don't even know what's broken, what's not. He's like, nothing's broken. I tested it all. Right? Left the unit tests in place. So testing is huge. Yes, it's a lot of work to set up and get going in the beginning, but it will save your bacon every time you roll out new stuff.
Yeah, and there's been like so many times over at Posh where we've had a feature and we're like about to push it out, and then like one of the tests is failing, and it actually was a huge bug if we had pushed it out. So like you can wait and like you can let your end users hit these bugs, or you could have like your like unit test hit these bugs first and have it get fixed first before you actually push it out. Yes, that's very important as well. So with circleci, it integrates really, really nicely with GitHub so that every time you make a commit, as I was saying a few times now, and I'll show you an example, it will run that test. So here's an example. I created a branch to upgrade our stuff to PHP 7. So that's a pretty big change, and I had to change a lot of things. Huh?
What were you on before you upgraded to PHP 7?
5.6, and it was a 40 to 50% increase in speed, which is great.
Right.
We still haven't merged this yet because the QA team is like, oh, we have to test everything. And I'm like, look, I already tested everything. But anyways, so it had this commit here, and it has this little thing, and it has this check, and it says, look, all of your tests have passed on Circle. It didn't start out that way. I started it out, and they were all like screwing up, and there's
5.6 was
a bunch of fires.
5,
5.6.
6, and 7 are basically the same thing.
Oh no, they're very different.
Huh.
So this pull request, you can see the history usually. Oh, it's not showing history. That's weird. But like it'll show. Let me find a different branch. We'll look at the develop branch. It'll show as they go. Okay, like here's one that failed, and there's an issue with that we had to fix. But then all these other ones are passing. You can see it's kind of hard to see on this small like resolution. I'm sorry, but for PHP 7, you can see here exactly like what it was doing. It ran 4,863 tests. It took it just under 20 minutes, I think it was. Or no, it was only 15 minutes, I guess. So actually, it's a lot faster on PHP 7. And then like you can see here, there's like artifacts from your test. You can see like what the output was of all those things.
Are you doing command negative?
Command negative?
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And you can check it down on that.
Okay, thank you. And like I even have mine split up into 2 containers. So it'll run like half of the test in one container, and it'll run the other half in this other container at the same time. And then like you can see if like any of them failed. And then like you can scale that up and have it be on like 4 or 5 or 6 containers. Ours is only 2 because we didn't have that much money for it. But there's all kinds of things that like you can do here. It's also running a standards check with the code standards. So if you have like a comma in the wrong place, it'll let you know. It'll be like, oh, you cannot merge this until that's fixed. In the past, it was just me saying, hey, like there's a problem with your comment here. And people are like, so I'm not going to fix it. So I actually have it in GitHub now that if there's anything that is not all the way passing over on Circle, that it won't allow you to merge it in. So now it's not like me like always having to say, hey, there's a comma here that's supposed to be there. It's actually this thing now. So like they aren't angry at me anymore. They're angry at themselves because they messed up. Yes, I am. Well, it's actually PHP CS, which is like the same thing as used with the coder module. But yeah, and it's right here, for example. And it just like hits all of our files in there. And like you can see the output of every single test here. After you commit something, it'll just automatically run. You don't have to do anything, which is really nice. I'm basically out of time now, I think. But
You keep saying when you committed on your local machine, but you gotta push
you have to push it up.
remote, so when
Right.
you're pushing,
so, for example, I could even start one now. Let me open up Posh project. You guys can see all of our messy code. So I've got a script here. Let me start one that already has a PR. Transactional PV. That one's failing, actually. That's a good one, I guess, because it's failing. Let's say I wanted to put something that doesn't have, like, if without a space. This isn't good. The standards aren't actually being followed there. So I'll go to commit, and I will watch this later. Just skip it later because I don't actually want this. Commit and push it up to prod. Okay, actually, so I'm going to go over into Circle so you can see this run first. Over here on GitHub, I have a pull request for this branch, the transactional PV branch, and it has an X right now because it isn't all the way passing. I screwed up some of the other tests in this branch. I'm not sure why yet. I have to figure it out. But I know that in this branch, there's stuff that's screwing up some of my tests, basically. So it has the commits here. So I'm going to basically push this up right now. And you can see that when I push it, it will, after it pushes, it will automatically detect that. And it has this little icon there that says it's now like running those tests. So I click here, go over there and look at it. And you can see it's starting to build basically right now live automatically. And if any of these tests are not passing, which I don't think this one will pass because it already wasn't passing and I didn't change anything, it will basically say, oh, there's something wrong, you need to fix it. And if it says that, then I'm not able to merge that in here because it has conflicts, and also it's out of date with the base branch, but there's other reasons too. Any questions there? I'm over time, I think, but that's pretty much what I was trying to get at. Was you have to write tests in order to stay sane, especially if you have a like really big team or if you have like really big projects. There isn't anything else you can do that will help you more than actually starting to create tests right now. And it's a lot of work up front, as sorry, what was your name? Sherwin said. It is like a lot of work up front, but it pays off in spades, like really quickly. Stuff that like you can start from here is like you can implement code coverage, which is like an automated thing that will say, okay, yes, you have tests, but it's only testing about 25% of your code, so it's not that great. So then like you know that you need to add more tests, and if you have commits and it's like lowering the amount of coverage, then like you can say, hold up, add a test, increase that every time.
What are other, so there's testing, continuous integration. You also have code standards. What other things do you check?
What other checks do we do?
Yeah.
Currently, we are doing standards and all of our tests, which includes unit tests, integration tests, everything. And then I think we're also doing the coverage too. So if you're introducing a feature and it's lowering that amount, then you say, hold up, you have to add a test for that. And if it's increasing the amount, we're like, great, you know. So there's other things you can do. You can integrate with Blackfire and like some other things out there to say if you're integrating a feature and it's slowing down our site, then it will flag it. It'll say, hold up, this thing caused like the homepage to load 25% slower. So you have to fix that first. There's other things you can do with that as well. I've integrated with them and coveralls here too. And the other thing that like you can do is you can say if all of your tests are passing, you can automatically have that get merged into master. And that's called continuous, yeah. So there's a good section here over in circleci that basically explains how to do that. And it's really powerful. You can do all kinds of things. You can have it actually get pushed out onto prod, or like you could just have it get like merged into master or something like that. There's all kinds of things you can do. It's automation, and it all gets like really powerful at that point. So the start though is having really good tests, because if you don't have tests, all of these things wouldn't really be possible, basically.
Are you doing TDD?
We do. We don't enforce it. We encourage it. I encourage it. I think I'm the only one who does it, honestly. But it's extremely helpful because you create the test first, and then after everything is passing, that's when you know you're done. And also, it requires you to actually create tests like for all your code. If you create the code first, and then you're like, okay, I'm supposed to start on this other feature, I don't have time to create a test, then you won't. But if you create it first, then it's always there. You always have time for it.
You said if a commit actually increases test coverage. So I guess there are a couple ways that a commit could increase test coverage.
If you're adding
One
tests.
is that it refactored the code, so now you actually have less code than you were before.
Yes.
And that gives you better test coverage. But is the other way, or the more typical way that a commit would increase test coverage is that it's actually written a new test for you?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, sorry, it kind of went over time, but it started late. So, yes, Jesse, is that right?
Yeah. One thing before we go, Jeremy asked me to mention that we do have a closing session and a raffle and everything after the last session.
Awesome.
So,
And I think we have lunch now. Is that right?
that's correct, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and thanks for listening. And if any of you guys have any questions, you can hit me up on Slack. I'm in the channel for the Drupal.org one. I don't know if you guys are in that channel, but you should be. It's really great.
On Slack?
No, sorry.
As of
The one for
last
Drupal Camp.
time,
I mean,
you guys moved to Slack. So they're not on IRC as much.
we should probably get Jeremy to announce more about that, I think, because I think it'd be useful to get a lot of people here on
I
that.
can mention it in a second.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yes. Where is the Slack?
Yeah. The second go around.
Uh,
You guys
let me find that.